If I gave two people the exact same income, same job, same starting point, one of them could end up rich and the other could stay broke for the rest of their life. And the crazy part is, it wouldn't come down to luck. It would come down to who plays the game better. Because rich people aren't just making more money, they're using money differently, they're thinking differently, they're moving differently. They follow a completely different set of rules that most people don't even realize exist. And once you see these rules, you start to realize why some people build wealth almost effortlessly, while others stay stuck no matter how hard they work. Remember the old saying, work smarter, not harder. So in this video, I'm going to break down 6 things rich people do differently to get rich, and most importantly, stay rich. And I want you to really pay attention to this, because even applying just 2 or 3 of these can completely change your financial future. Starting off with number 1. They invest consistently, not emotionally. Most people treat investing like a guessing game. They wait for the perfect time, they get scared when the market drops, they get excited when everything is going up, and they end up doing the worst thing possible, buying high and selling low. Rich people don't do that. They invest consistently. Every paycheck, every month, no matter what the market is doing. This is where real wealth is made, because of compound growth. Let's say someone invests $500 a month. That might not sound crazy, but in 10, 20, 30 years, that can turn into hundreds of thousands, even millions. Here's a graph showing what the compounding would look like if you were to consistently invest $500 a month, no matter what the market value is saying. And after 19 years of investing, you would have $250,000. And after 38 years of investing, you would hit $1 million. So if you're 20 years old and you start investing now, you would have $1 million by the age of 58, which is amazing for retirement. It's not because they got lucky, it's because they stayed consistent. They didn't get scared when the market dropped. And remember, time in the market beats timing the market every time. The second thing that I'm going to mention that rich people do is they focus on ownership, not just income. Most people are obsessed with how much money they make. How can I make more money? How can I get a raise? How can I work more hours? Most rich people focus on something more important. What do I own? Because income pays your bills, but ownership builds your wealth. Owning stocks, owning businesses, owning real estate, things that continue to generate money even when you're not working. Think about it like this. If you were to stop working today, your income stops. But if you own assets, these can keep paying you. Rich people don't just work for money, they buy things that make them money. And I'm not talking about cars that depreciate every year that life goes on. I'm talking about real money-making assets, as in shares in VU, which is Vanguard's version of the S&P 500, that appreciates 7% annually according to about 100 years of backed research. Or a rental property where you put down 20% and have a mortgage loan with an annual interest rate of 6%, and you rent it out and it basically pays for itself while someone rents it out from you. And as time goes on and you start paying back that mortgage, that equity just goes straight to your net worth. Alright, number 3 on my list, they understand taxes and play the game legally. This is one of the biggest differences. Most people focus on how much money they make. Rich people focus on how much money they can keep. Because taxes are your biggest expense, whether you realize it or not. And over time, they can take a massive chunk of your money. So what do rich people do? They learn how the system works. They use retirement accounts, they take advantage of tax benefits, they write off legitimate expenses if they have a business. They're not doing anything illegal, they just understand the rules better. And when you understand the rules, you can play the game smarter. Let's break down a simple example. Let's say 2 people both make $70,000 a year. Same income, but one of them understands taxes and the other doesn't. The first person gets their paycheck, pays their taxes, and whatever left is what they live off of. The second person does something different. They contribute into a retirement account like a 401k, which is provided by your employer. And let's say they put $10,000 in the 401k for the year. Here's what happens. They don't get taxed on that $10,000 right now. So instead of being taxed on $70,000, they're only being taxed on $60,000. I put this scenario into a tax calculator and I put them both making $70,000 a year, but one put $10,000 into a 401k and the other did not. As you can see, the person that didn't put any money into their 401k, had a take-home pay of $55,000, and they paid a total of almost $15,000 in taxes. Now if we look at the person that put $10,000 into the 401k, you can see that their take-home pay is a little less, around $7,000 less, but they paid $2,500 less in taxes, and that $10,000 then just disappear. It's in their retirement waiting for them. And on top of that, that $10,000 that they invested is growing over time. Now let's take it a step further. Let's say they start a small side hustle, maybe a YouTube channel or reselling or anything like that. Now certain expenses like equipment, software, and any other expenses that they use for the business can potentially be written off. So now they're lowering their taxable income even more. Same income, but one person keeps more of it, just because they understand how the system works. The fourth tip is that the rich control their lifestyle inflation. Lifestyle inflation is when you start getting paid more money, then you start spending more money. This is where a lot of people get stuck. They start making more money and immediately start spending more money. Better car, better apartment, more going out, more everything. But before they know it, they're making more money but they still feel broke. Rich people do the exact opposite. When their income goes up, they increase their investments first. They don't rush to upgrade everything. They let the gap grow between what they make and what they spend. And that gap is where real wealth is built. The person that's running around with a brand new car, brand new Gucci belt, brand new clothes, they may look rich, but their bank account would say different. And this is a very common problem when people start making real money. So don't let this trap affect you because it sneaks up quietly and really impacts your wealth in the future. Number 5 on my list is they use debt strategically. Now this one is misunderstood because most people hear debt and they think always bad, but rich people look at it differently. There's bad debt like high interest credit cards used for random purchases, and there's strategic debt used to acquire assets. For example, borrowing money to buy something that provides income. That's completely different because now the debt is working for you instead of draining you. The key is simple. If the debt is making you money and helping you grow, it can be useful. If it's just funding your lifestyle, it's holding you back. Let me give you a real example that actually makes sense. Imagine two people both take out $20,000 in debt. The first person uses it to buy a car they can't afford. Now they're just paying $400 to $500 monthly, and that's not including insurance or other fees like registration. And that car is losing value every single day. That debt is costing them money every month. Now the second person takes out the same $20,000, but instead they use it as a down payment on something that makes money. Maybe it's a small rental property, maybe it's equipment to start a business, maybe it's something they can flip for profit. Now instead of paying $500 a month out of pocket, that asset might be bringing in $800, $1,000, maybe more. So after expenses, it's actually putting money in your pocket every month. Same amount of debt, completely different outcome. One is draining you, the other is paying you. That's the difference between bad debt and strategic debt. Number 6 on my list is that they track their money and they stay aware of what they're buying, if it's a want, if it's a need. They are tracking their monthly expenses to see how much they need to save each month and how much they can spend or invest. Because the more you can cut down on unnecessary expenses, the more you can invest and let compounding do the work. And you may be thinking that this is a minuscule tip that doesn't matter, but most people don't even know where their money is going. They just swipe the card and hope everything works out. Rich people don't operate like that. They know their numbers, how much is coming in, how much is going out, where it's going. And it's not in an obsessive way, but in a controlled way. Because awareness creates control, and control leads to better decisions. Even just checking your bank accounts regularly can change how much you spend money. For me personally, I just started doing this recently, and I was so surprised on how many unnecessary purchases I was making each month without even knowing it. It showed me areas where I needed to cut back my spending a little bit, like food, going out, and random purchases that I just didn't need. And I'm not saying you can't have fun or buy what you want, but just taking a look at the numbers will change your perspective on how much you're spending on stuff that is a want and not a need. Rich people are not just working hard, they're thinking differently, they're playing the game differently, They focus on ownership, they invest consistently, they understand taxes, they build multiple income streams, they control their lifestyle, they think long term, and the most important part is this: none of this is out of reach. You don't need to be rich to start doing these things, you just need to start thinking this way. Even clicking on this video because of the title puts you ahead of most people, because once you start to incorporate some of these tips, everything changes. The way you spend, the way you save, the way you invest. So the real question is, are you going to keep doing what most people do, or are you going to start playing the game differently? Because once you see how it works, you can't unsee it. And that's when things start to change. I would love to hear if you guys are doing any of these already down in the comments, or if you want a more detailed video on any one of these tips. That's it for this video. If you found this helpful, drop a like, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.